Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
What up, y'all? It's Joe Budden, here to talk about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win real money while watching football. You can get up to 100 times your money.
Prize Picks will give you $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code SPOTIFY. That's code SPOTIFY on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Welcome to the chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 176 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on the Tough Cover radio show. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at MarkHenryJr_. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Always good to do these pods on a Victory Monday. Not just for the Eagles, but for Notre Dame as well. It's from Saturday. So good weekend for me, especially on the gambling perspective side of things yesterday. So I'll be talking about these games a bit more happily than when I have a bad week on the gambling perspective.
I was disappointed in the competitiveness of the Notre Dame game on Saturday. I was excited to watch that one. I'm a huge fan of, the old school option. You got two service academies in the top 25. I was like, maybe this will be a good game. And right out of the gate, it was like, nope, it's not going to happen today. But instead, I just had to go watch the OU game. But we won't talk about it. They
played a lot better than anyone thought they would, to be fair. They covered a spread there.
They did. There's a family that goes to my church that they're Ole Miss fans. And one of the I teach the teenagers in the morning, and one of them was like, what'd you think about that OU game? And he's like trying to talk trash. And I was like, that's the best game they've played in a month. I was really pleased.
They covered the spread, kid.
Yeah. But yeah, I try not to talk spreads and gambling too much to teenagers. We don't want to start them too early, but that's why I come on here and talk to you. But hey, what'd you learn at church today? Well, I learned what a spread is and how to gamble on.
I learned what that was. So I actually, this is just a trip down memory lane here. One of the ways I fell in love with the NFL outside of the Eagles was the Sunday newspaper, the Philly Inquirer. It used to lay out all the Sunday games, and it would put the two helmets, and it would give a couple like injury stats and like things to watch for in the game under it. And there was like some guy at the newspaper who would make his pick, and I would go and I would take a pen and I would circle the helmet of each team that I thought was going to win. But there was always these parentheses around one of the teams, and it would say -4.5. And I'd be like, Dad, what's going on? 4.5. No one's going to win by a half point. Little did he know he was creating a monster at like age 8 years old, whenever that was that I found that. But there's a trip down memory lane.
There you go. I remember as a kid, I would wake up on Saturday mornings before the OU game, and I would like write down like my keys to victory for the offense and the defense on both sides. And then I'd go watch the game, and I'd come back and I would like check it off if they got it. And then I would like exit out if they didn't. And I probably still have some of those notebooks somewhere, but I should try to dig those up. I was probably like 8 or 9. So, all right. Well, enough of that. You didn't come here to hear it. Maybe you did. Maybe you enjoy the reminiscing about our growing up as football. But we're going to dive into the NFC East games, and then we'll throw it around the rest of the league as well. And Mark, let's start off in the afternoon, the game that caused the Eagles game to be flexed out. It was Chicago at Washington, the battle of the top 2 overall picks, and a lot of intrigue going into this game. And to be honest, I thought it was a pretty boring game, but it had a crazy finish. That's the only thing that really matters, I guess, is Washington wins 18-15. And we got to start at the end of the game. The Bears score a touchdown to take a 15-12 lead with 25 seconds left. The Commanders complete an 11-yard pass and then take a timeout with 6 seconds left. So there's no timeouts left, 6 seconds. the ball on the 35-yard line. And for some reason, the Bears go into Hail Mary mode. They've got 3 rushers and a spy. Every other defender is over 35 yards away. Nobody lined up over the receivers. So just a quick 13-yard throw out of bounds, 2 seconds left, and it gets you in the position where you can throw a Hail Mary. And we can talk about everything that went wrong on the Hail Mary, but we could also talk about how asinine it is to give up those 13 yards. And then with 2 seconds left, again, the Bears only rush 3, and they have a spy. Like, are you really worried about Jayden Daniels running 55 yards for a touchdown? Like, there's so many numbers. It takes a second or two to look it up, the numbers against a 3-man rush versus 4 or 5. Like, you should always blitz the Hail Mary in this situation. And of course, you get the tipped ball, it goes into the end zone, and the Commanders win the game. And so, wild ending to the game. You get the video coming out later of Tyreek Stevenson is turned around talking trash to Commanders fans while the receivers are running down the field, which is undoubtedly a bad look. Although I will say, I mean, he gets a hand on the pass. It's not like he was just like still talking trash as the touchdown happened. But we can take a step back from that, and we can say the Commanders controlled the game in the first half. They outgained Chicago 267-90, but they continued to settle for field goals. Washington was 0 of 3 in the red zone. It almost cost them. I thought Jayden Daniels statistically far outperformed Caleb Williams, 21 of 38 for 326 yards and a touchdown, versus Caleb Williams, 10 of 24 for 131 yards. I thought Caleb Williams had a few moments that were really good in this game too, as well. So the coaching failed the Bears in this one. The Hail Mary wasn't the only coaching blunder. They also called a handoff to a backup center on 3rd and goal at the 1-yard line, down 12-7 in the late fourth quarter, and it was fumbled and recovered by the Commanders. So just an all-timer, awful coaching job by the Bears. This is why I've been out on Eberflus for years. He shouldn't be the head coach there. And you can talk about like, oh, the defense has been pretty good. Your defense just epically peed down its leg in a game was over situation. So, and the way he defended it at the podium after the game was absurd too. So the Bears lose this one. The Commanders pick up a win that stinks for Eagles fans. I saw some Eagles fans like, man, that really stinks for winning the East. And it does. At least you still have like 2 head-to-head matchups left. I can't imagine how angry Eagles fans would be if this was like week 16 and you just needed the Commanders to lose. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but the Commanders squeak out another victory. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb was terrible for 3 quarters of this game. I mean, I think he was something like 3 or 4 for 12 for like 33 yards after 3 quarters, or at least towards the end of the 3rd quarter. So I think about 100 of these 131 yards came in the 4th. He looked great in the 4th. On a couple of those drives, and he had to lead 3 drives in the 4th to score there, and one of them got ruined. And Eberflus is going to be a guy who takes a lot of the blame. The Hail Mary's just so egregious, and like you said, the things that led up to the Hail Mary were so egregious as well. That's always going to be what the focus is, and I'm not trying to even absolve any of that from that. What I will say is the defense did a great job for a lot of this game for Chicago, holding them to 4 field goals before that Hail Mary, where Washington was moving the ball pretty well and Chicago was able to stall them out later in drives. And you have to give Eberflus some credit for that as kind of the DC. To me, what stood out more than anything is just Shane Waldron stinks. The play calling, and obviously the most obvious example is that the center who they've been using that backup center as a fullback, just as a kind of a blocker for Roschon Johnson in the red zone. And I guess this was kind of their trying to put a variation out there. You don't try to put a variation out there on film in the 4th quarter of like a game that you're down by 5 in that you really need to win. So I thought that was horrible. And also it was like 2nd down. Like how do you pull something out like that on 2nd down?
It was third and 1. Third and goal at the 1.
I thought it was 2nd and goal at the 1.
But presumably 4 down territory. Essentially absolutely. It plays out like a 2nd down. Yeah.
Down 5, absolutely 4 down territory. So I don't know how you don't at least try a QB sneak on one of this. I'm just Mr. QB sneak, and that's pre-tush push. I've been saying that since Madden 04 or whenever I figured it out. But I thought Waldron was terrible in this game. Outside of that, it's just you have Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and Cole Kmet, and it just feels like you watch some of the replays and there's nothing going on. Like, I don't know what Caleb's supposed to do on some of these plays, and that sounds like excusing Caleb, but the O-line's been really disappointing. And then why is no one open when you have four guys like that? Like, draw something up, Shane Waldron. Like, do some mesh, get them running off of each other, do something to get someone single down on single coverage, or do something to get someone open on some side of the field. It just feels like Caleb, everything he's doing has to be done through him creating it. And there was obviously like one throw going around from the fourth quarter that was unbelievable, that he stood in there and took the hit and made the big throw anyway. But it just feels like that's everything he has to do is always so hard.
Yeah. And he's the guy that's supposed to be in like a great position this year. Unlike some of the other quarterbacks like Jayden Daniels, who was supposed to be in a pretty bad position. And, Cliff Kingsbury's done a great job there. Jayden Daniels looks incredible. Maybe we have to
give Cliff credit.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I absolutely would. I wouldn't touch Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach.
Someone will.
Someone will. I would not, because we've seen it at Texas Tech. We've seen it in Arizona. But maybe he's going to end up being like a Steve Spagnuolo on the other side of the ball. It's like, you can just be an offensive. He's not going to be, because he's an offensive coordinator. He will be a head coach in the next 2 to 3 years if they continue to do this. But I was critical of that hire, and it turns out he was probably the perfect hire to be the OC to come in and work with Jayden Daniels.
If I was a college team who struck out, and I know how bad he was at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes, no one has to tell me. I watched more Patrick Mahomes in college than anybody back in the day, but I would be interested if I was a college team that kind of struck out on the big kind of college hires and you dip into the pool. He clearly has found something. And I think what Jayden Daniels is doing and kind of his style of offense is a lot of what we see at the college level. So I think it would be interesting. Yeah, we have a comment there from Brett Eclipse. I'm hoping we see the Cliff late season drop off for Washington. And that is interesting. Well, if we see that as an OC, not just a head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything else you want to throw out on that game before we get into the Dallas game?
Just that, I remember after week 1, I came on here because I kind of had talked in the offseason about, Washington might be the second best team in this division, because I was really low on Dallas coming into the year. And I said, if things break right, if Jayden Daniels stays healthy, we talked about the high floor we thought Jayden Daniels gave Washington just as an offense. And I said, if Dan Quinn's able to figure it out on defense at all, then I think this is an 8 or 9 plus win team. And then after week 1, they got shredded by Tampa. And I came on the show after, and I remember being like, you know what? I probably need to just stop saying when a defensive coach takes over as a head coach that even if they don't have the talent, they'll make the defense average, because Raheem Morris, the defense didn't look good in week 1 for Atlanta, and the same thing here with Washington. And you know what? Dan Quinn's kind of figured out how to make that defense look passable in a lot of these games, and especially, obviously, for the first 3 quarters against Chicago and Raheem Morris in the same, not necessarily this week, but Atlanta's defense has looked better in some of these games as well. So maybe I was right in the offseason, and my saying I was wrong in the offseason after week 1 was actually wrong.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see how it continues to play out in Washington. Let's go to San Francisco, where the 49ers beat Dallas 30-24. And Mark, garbage time Dak is back. There might have never been a quarterback who thrives on garbage time the way Dak Prescott did. Here's some splits for you. Last night in the first 3 quarters, he goes 16-23 for 116 yards and 2 picks to help put the Cowboys down 17. Then when the game is basically out of reach, down 17 in the fourth quarter, he has a stretch where he goes 9 of 11 for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then the defense accidentally gets a 3 and out, and suddenly the Cowboys have the ball, down 6 with 3 minutes left and a chance to go win the game. And somebody accidentally told Dak Prescott, hey, this could be a game-winning drive, and then he went 0 for 4 as the Cowboys go 4 and out and lose the game. It's just incredible the garbage time stat padding that Dak Prescott continually puts up. And I defended Dak Prescott for a lot of years as how good of a quarterback he was. But man, this year has been a disaster for the Cowboys. And I saw RJ Ochoa, who is one of the guys that runs Blogging the Boys for the Cowboys. He tweeted out a stat that the NFL record for most games with less than 70 rushing yards and allowing more than 180 rushing yards is 6. The Cowboys have done it 4 times in 7 games this season. So the Cowboys are shooting for an NFL record there, although it's not one that you want to not one you want to make. Also saw the screenshot going around of Mazi Smith being ranked 119th out of 119 defensive tackles by PFF.
If only there was a draft show that a couple folks do around here that we told you how bad that pick was exactly when it happened.
I will never forget the number of Cowboys fans coming at me on draft night when I was critical of that pick. And I was like, I don't know what y'all want me to say, because I put out my draft board before the draft and had a late 3rd round grade on him. That's why I do this stuff in advance. It's not the Cowboys picked him, so I hate him. But yeah, just a disaster. I guess the other notable thing, because honestly, I didn't think this game was very good. It wasn't very enjoyable to watch. Maybe that's because I hate both teams playing, but George Kittle had 6 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. And I hate the National Tight End Day thing that they cram down your throat. I think it's the most annoying thing ever. And it annoyed me every time he caught a pass and we had to keep talking about it. But it was a good performance from Kittle to reassert himself there in the 49ers offense. So, and honestly, as a 49ers fan, it's probably hard to feel great about this win because, again, you had a 17-point fourth quarter lead and you almost gave it away. And that's something they've struggled with too. So I think it's a game that Dallas comes out of and you feel really bad. And if you're a 49ers fan, you probably also don't feel great about this win.
The one thing I'll say is Purdy was great. I mean, Purdy was so good in this game without Ayuk and obviously without McCaffrey, and Jordan Mason goes out and Garendo kind of steps in and is better than Mason. So, yeah, I mean, Purdy, 56 yards on the ground also and touchdown scoot. He's really making stuff happen. You mentioned not feeling great coming out of this game. I don't think that's about the offense if you're San Fran. I think it's about the defense. Like, how do you if you see those CeeDee Lamb touchdowns late in the game, CeeDee Lamb is the only player on the field for the Dallas Cowboys who scares you in any capacity on any play. How is he ever that open? That can't happen. And I understand that they almost had the game wrapped up. And I mean, but when you give up a touchdown to go from 13 to a 6-point lead with 3 minutes and 45 seconds to go, Dallas got the ball back in like a minute. So that could have ended up kind of getting really hairy there. And obviously it didn't. But, and then on the other side of the ball, I just want to say,
hold on the CeeDee Lamb thing, per next gen stats, CeeDee Lamb had 16.3 yards of separation on that 7-yard. It's a 7-yard touchdown pass. It's the 4th most separation on a pass thrown into the end zone during the next gen stats era, which dates back to 2016.
It's insane. It was insane how open he was. And but kind of going back to that, I don't want to be the guy who sits up and defends Dak every week, but this is not about Dak. This is about the fact that they have absolutely no running game at all. 19 carries for 56 yards. You have a terrible run defense. You have one singular weapon on the offense at all, and it's CeeDee Lamb. And that's what you see in this game. 13 catches for CeeDee Lamb, 146 yards. They had 97 passing yards other than CeeDee Lamb. It's just there's not enough talent on this offense for Dak to look like the Dak we've seen in years past. And what we saw from him last year with that lack of talent, still, I think we should go back on it and kind of be like, wow, that was incredible. That maybe he should have won MVP, to be honest, last year. So I hate to be the Dak defender, but I also don't want to sit up here and crush Dak, even though he had 2 picks. This isn't his fault.
Yeah. Let's go to a few comments here before we roll on. Phil on Twitter asks if we think Nick's involvement on the team is becoming less and less. We can answer that briefly, but this is more NFL. There'll be a lot of stuff on the feed Eagles-wise later in the week. We kind of try to focus on the other teams, but I mean, they're clearly under center more. They're fleshing out the Kellen Moore offense. I don't know if it was Nick's involvement as much as taking time to get comfortable in that and ramp up to it. But do you have any thoughts on that quickly that you want to throw out?
Yeah, did you see the Chris Long video about the first quarter starts for the Eagles?
I did not, no.
He put out an interesting video about the first drive, actually, not first quarter, first drive stats for the Eagles this year. The run-pass split is 33-67 towards the pass on the first drive. If you look at Nick Sirianni, the first 8 weeks, which is the only time that we've known for sure Nick Sirianni is the play caller, is the first 8 weeks of 2021. What do you think the run-pass split was in 2021?
Is it like the same? Or more pass heavy?
It's exact. I think I froze there, but it's 33-67 towards the pass. Exactly. It's the exact same percentage to the decimal point as what it was the first 8 weeks of 2021. So what Chris Long was suggesting was that Nick is setting up the script maybe, or very involved at least, in setting up the script that they go into the game with. And then Kellen Moore is kind of taking over for the rest of the game when the game gets fluid. And that the rest of the game, it's 52-48 from a run. We're running about 52% of the time and passing it 48% of the time the rest of the game, which I guess is a little bit more in line with Kellen's kind of career. So interesting stats there.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, go to a couple more comments here. Brett Eclipse on YouTube says it feels like the NFC power structure is about to switch to Eagles Commanders for the next few years instead of the classic Philly Dallas dominance. I will say that's going to be dependent on keeping Cliff Kingsbury, because when you hire the defensive head coach, if the offense succeeds with the rookie quarterback and the guy gets hired away, you've got to try to replace that. So that's something to monitor. Another comment
that also
says,
reminds.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, that reminds me of everyone saying, the AFC South was the Jags division for a decade when they drafted Trevor, or after Trevor's second year when they went to the playoffs. It's not the NBA. It's not the MLB. Like, things change so fast in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. Got another comment on YouTube says that Dak Prescott's like the Bobby Abreu of the Cowboys. We've got remember when they told us Mozzie Smith would be the tush push stopper? Another, I'm a Michigan fan and I knew Mozzie Smith wasn't anywhere near a first round talent. So did literally everyone evaluating the draft that wasn't in the Cowboys war room. But I digress and we'll move on. We're not going to talk about the Giants and the Steelers because obviously that's the Monday Night Football game and we're recording this Monday afternoon. So hopefully you'll have already listened to this before that game. But let's get into the rest of the slate. We'll briefly touch on Thursday Night Football, but that's been so long ago. The Rams beat the Vikings 30-20. The Vikings started the season 5-0, and now they've lost 2 games in 5 days, and they lost Christian Darrisaw for the season with an ACL and MCL injury. That's terrible for them, potentially derailing for their season. I think the 2 takeaways from this game, one is that when the Rams have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp on the field, they can play with anybody. They got a chance to beat anybody. Nacua had 7 catches for 106 yards in his return from his week 1 knee injury. Cooper Kupp drew a pair of defensive pass interference penalties. He scored a touchdown. Kyron Williams rushed for 97 yards, had a receiving touchdown. So they've got weapons on the offense there. And Matthew Stafford's obviously still capable of playing at an extremely high level. The other thing that's a big takeaway is the horrible missed face mask call at the end of the game. The Vikings get the ball back down 8 with a chance to maybe go drive and try to go for 2 and tie the game up. And Sam Darnold gets sacked in the end zone. It's clear face mask. Byron Young, immediately hands go to the head because he knows he got his face mask right in front of an official. No flag comes out. You hate to see games end with things like that going on. I don't understand what the point of the expedited review stuff is if you can clearly see that. I'm not saying that we should be legislating pass interference frame by frame in slow motion, but that's just a clear and obvious penalty. I thought that's what the expedited replay assist was there for. So disappointing end to a game that the Rams were probably going to win anyways. But the Vikings dropped their 2nd straight and, more importantly, lose Christian Darrisaw for the year. What are you got any quick thoughts you want to give on that one before we get into the Sunday action?
Yeah. For me, the biggest take here is that this is kind of what we were waiting for with the Brian Flores Linsanity run to be over. Like that defense was performing so far above their talent for the first 6-7 weeks of the year, and it was just not sustainable. And I kept saying that.
Are you there? You're freezing there. Okay, we just dropped Mark. So I will continue on with the next game. We'll circle back with Mark here in a minute, getting a little laggy here going live. So let's get into the Sunday slate while I wait on Mark to pop back in. The Baltimore Ravens travel to Cleveland to face off against the Browns. And here's Mark back. So I'll throw it back to him here. Mark, you got laggy there for a second. I could tell when I threw to you that your audio was lagging a little behind, but you seem good now. Go ahead and finish what you're saying. We heard you say that Brian Flores' Linsanity run might be coming to an end. Where were you going to go with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was. I think McVay, obviously one of the smarter offensive minds out there, figured out a lot of what was going on and kind of the things he was throwing at quarterbacks that guys were struggling with. And you saw Stafford pick them apart, and obviously they have the weapons to do so. So maybe not every offense is able to copy what McVay was kind of able to do there. But I think that's kind of more of what I expect from the Minnesota defense going forward. I thought there was way too much attention paid to the face mask in the end zone. They were down 8 and they were in their own end zone. Like, I get it. It's a bad call, but they would have had to go down, score, get the 2-point conversion, and then we'd have overtime. Like I guess like I just thought there was a little bit too much talk of like it impacting the outcome. I think the Rams won that game very fair and square and resoundingly. The Vikings have a kind of an easy schedule coming up if you go look at it, or at least there's some easy games sprinkled in there. So part of me thinks here's where the Vikings collapse comes in. But a lot of that is, I think, going to be hard with some of their schedule. Obviously, some division games that are going to be tough sprinkled in there with how tough their division is. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Minnesota.
Yeah, it looks like their upcoming schedule: Indianapolis, at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, at Chicago versus Arizona. So definitely a lot of winnable games on that schedule. And I think it's the Vikings. Obviously, the probability of winning a game when you get the ball on the 5-yard line down 8 with under 2 minutes left is not high. But 2 of their previous 3 drives, they moved the ball down the field, obviously resulted in field goals. I think people are, it's rightly disappointed. Like if that's a missed call in a first quarter, it doesn't sit with you as much as like, we watched a whole game. Are we going to get the game winning drive? And get that. So that the placement of it is also unfortunate, but certainly the Rams earned that victory.
And one last thing. The comment, Mark disappeared like the Vikings defense. That's a good one. One thing I want to say, Kyren Williams is official. I've kicked this around with some friends lately and some Notre Dame fans as well. Kyren Williams is officially the best Notre Dame fantasy football player of all time. It's not even necessarily close. I think Joe Montana was too long ago.
Oh, there we go, Mark. Joe Montana was too long ago, you were going to say?
Yeah, Tim Brown, Jerome Bettis, you look at the numbers. They didn't put up numbers like Kyren Williams is on pace to put up this year. That guy's the best Notre Dame fantasy football player of all time.
Yeah. Mark, we can troubleshoot live on the air. This is awesome. You might want to, maybe you can downscale your camera resolution and see if that helps on the settings down there at the bottom. I don't know if that'll help out or not.
Move on to what's the next game here?
Browns, Ravens.
Move on to the next game. I'm going to be right back in.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to skip a game because I want Mark to hear a stat I've got for the Browns Ravens. So we're going to go to Tennessee at Detroit. And this was a tough game I lied. I want Mark to hear that one too. We're going to go to Arizona at Miami. Arizona wins this game 28-27. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. finally got their connection going in the second half of this game. They didn't connect well week 1. They had the stellar week 2, and then it's been kind of quiet. And Marvin Harrison Jr. had 2 catches for 33 yards in the first half. But in the second half of the game, he had 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. Trey McBride, National Tight End Day. I'll stop saying that because I hate it. But he had 9 catches for 124 yards. And he's a guy that I remember kind of liking coming out of the draft a couple of years ago. So I'm happy to see him doing well. Tua made his return for the Dolphins in this game. And I mean, the offense instantly looks better, as you would expect it would. Tua went 28 of 38 for 234 yards and a touchdown. He was only sacked once. Devon Achane, I thought, had a really good game. He had 10 carries for 97 yards. And then Raheem Mostert has 9 carries for only 19 yards, but he got both of the rushing touchdowns. So you feel for Achane a little bit there, but he did have a receiving touchdown and 50 yards receiving on 6 receptions. So he's been a really fun player in this Miami offense. The Cardinals were down 2 with 5 minutes left in this game. And then they went on a 13-play, 83-yard drive, and they kicked a game-winning field goal as time expired. The Cardinals never led in this game. The field goal hits after time expired. So I guess technically you say they led for 1 second in this game, but the clock hit zeros with the Cardinals still behind, and yet they ended up winning this game. And Brett Eclipse chimes in here and says that, oh, I clicked the wrong comment. He said the Cardinals are the most bipolar team in the league this year. And yeah, that's absolutely right. The Cardinals, some games they look good, some games they just don't. And I don't think this is a team that you take seriously moving forward, but they are a team that can go beat people. So we've got Mark back in the studio here. Mark, can you hear me okay? Maybe not. Maybe. Okay. I'm just going to keep talking then. Okay. Mark, can you hear me now? Okay. He left again. So we'll keep rolling. And you love this. Let's go to Tampa Bay. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Atlanta wins this game 31-26. And the Falcons had a 13-17 lead going into the fourth quarter. But they took a safety, and then they gave up a touchdown drive. And then they missed a 46-yard field goal that would have pushed it into a lead, an 8-point lead with a little over a minute left. But the defense did hang on and get a stop to win the game. And so the Falcons were in danger of giving this game away. Ultimately, they were able to pull it out, though. This game contains the most Baker Mayfield stat line of all time. Mayfield threw for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he also threw for 2 picks, and they were both inside the 10-yard line. So most Baker game ever. And I did think the Bucs looked better than expected without their top 2 wide receivers, but they fall behind the Falcons in the divisional race by a game. And they've lost to the Falcons twice. So they can't own the tiebreaker. So essentially they're down 2 games to the Falcons. And Kirk Cousins in this game goes for 276 yards and 4 touchdowns. He plays a clean game. And so the Falcons now sit alone in first place. And essentially it's a 2-game lead. Mark, looks like you're on your phone now. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we'll be fine now. What a disaster.
What a disaster. That's a bigger disaster than Baker Mayfield was.
Well, I mean, they put
Except
up
he
a lot
wasn't
of
really
points.
Yeah, I said the 330 yards and 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions inside the 10-yard line is the most Baker Mayfield stat of all. The most NFL Baker Mayfield stat. Don't get it crossed. I'm not disrespecting the Baker Mayfield that was at Oklahoma because he was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he went 37 for 50. They scored 26 points. Obviously, they obviously had the 2 bad turnovers, but I don't think anyone expected Baker to put up 26 here without his top 2 receivers and put up 330 yards. Even, ignore. It's not even like they ran the ball that well either. So I don't want to. I actually was super impressed walking away from this game by Baker.
All right. Well, Mark, I started to talk about Baltimore and Cleveland, and I stopped myself because I had a stat I wanted you to hear. And so I went to Tennessee, Detroit, and I stopped myself because I had a stat I wanted you to hear there too. So we'll circle back to those games now. And so let's go Baltimore at Cleveland. Cleveland wins this game 29-24. And Mark, Deshaun Watson played 19 games as a Cleveland Brown. How many times do you think he threw for 300 yards?
0.
Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco have started 7 combined games for the Browns. How many times do you think they've thrown for 300 yards?
4.
6.
That's great.
And oh, by the way, the Browns traded their best receiver too before this game. So you love to see that. Jameis Winston comes in, throws for 300 yards, wins the game. The Ravens still should have won this game. There was a lot of Rashad Bateman dropped a wide open third down pass right off the face mask in the fourth quarter. Kyle Hamilton dropped a pick. I whispered that. We don't have to say it out loud. That would have sealed the game. The offense was only 2 of 10 on third downs. They moved the ball, but they couldn't convert third downs. It's crazy. You look at the stats, and it's like, how did they not put up more points? Lamar throws for 289 and 2 touchdowns. He rushes for 46 yards. Derrick Henry averages 6.5 yards a carry, but he only had 11 carries for a touchdown. And I mean, it wasn't Baltimore's day. They lose a game that they definitely will want to have back in that AFC North race. And meanwhile, honestly, the Browns probably win a game that they would rather have not won when it comes to draft positioning because the team's going nowhere. But here we go. What thoughts on the Browns finally winning a game as soon as they get rid of Deshaun Watson?
I think Cleveland could push for like an 8-ish win year. I don't think this team was ever that bad. I think Deshaun Watson was just that bad. And I think Stefanski's a pretty good coach. I honestly think Cleveland would have beat any team in the NFL yesterday. And I think that team was just going to come out and beat whoever they played without Deshaun Watson. That was the most obvious plus 350 money line bet of all time. I hammered the Browns on the spread and on the money line. So I was a big Browns fan yesterday. And I thought that it was just going to be a one game, almost like when a coach gets fired and you always see that interim team come out fired up no matter who they're playing. I thought it would be a situation like that. I walk out of the game feeling like, this Cleveland team could win some games coming up. Like, they're a home dog next week against the Chargers. I'll be on Cleveland again. Like, this team is not that bad. The defense looks a lot better when Deshaun Watson isn't going 3 and out 5 times a game. So I think that this is a team that's going to at least be competitive and frisky down the stretch, which adds to an already interesting AFC North there. But I don't walk out of this game nervous about Baltimore at all. It's not even just the Kyle Hamilton one. There were a couple other drop picks as well. I think Baltimore is going to be just fine. I wouldn't be shocked if Baltimore loses like one more game the rest of the year, to be honest. Like, I think they're going to still win 12 plus games.
Yeah, I do think it's concerning that they couldn't get pressure, and that's gonna be the Achilles heel for this Baltimore defense. But my take out of this game is that the Deshaun Watson injury is going to save Kevin Stefanski's job. He was going to get fired. They're going to win games now, and the organization is going to have to look themselves in the face and be like, "This is our fault, not Stefanski's fault."
Yeah, totally agree. I totally agree.
All right, let's go on to Tennessee at Detroit. And this was a tough game for Jared Goff, Mark. He only threw for 85 yards. He was sacked 4 times as the Lions lost a stunner to the Titans. Oh, wait. They won 52-14? I mean, this is a crazy game, right? The Lions score 5 touchdowns in the first half, and only one of them was longer than a 25-yard drive. And it was a one-play 70-yard touchdown run by Jahmyr Gibbs. They opened the second half with a punt return touchdown. They had another 26-yard touchdown. Detroit ends up only putting up 61 net passing yards. And they only ran for 164 yards, and they put up 52 points. Khalil Dorsey had a 72-yard kick return. Khalif Raymond had a 64-yard punt return, and then a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. They had 196 return yards over expectation in the game. So, just a total beatdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown caught a touchdown pass in this game. He had 2 catches for 7 yards, but he had a touchdown, and he became the first Lion with a receiving touchdown in 5 straight games since Calvin Johnson did it in 2011. I don't know what this game was just domination. I don't even have anything to say about the Titans.
Brian Callahan, one and done, maybe.
Yeah.
They look like they quit. They look like they've quit.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. So let's roll on to New England, where the Jets lose 22-25. And Mark, the Jets scored. There's 3 components to the stat: scoring over 20 points, having 0 turnovers, and holding your opponent under 250 yards of offense. The Jets did those 3 things. Going into this week in NFL history, that had been done 756 times, and teams were undefeated when they did so. The Jets became the first team to lose when they score over 20 points, have 0 turnovers, and hold their opponent under 250 yards. And they did that in a game where Drake May left in the first half with a concussion. Aaron Rodgers leads a 70-yard touchdown drive to take the lead with under 3 minutes left, but then Jacoby Brissett answers with a 70-yard touchdown drive to win the game. And I just want to point out that the Jets are 0-3 since they scapegoated their head coach, who was not that major issue to start with. And the Jets should be sellers at the deadline. Like, you never should have traded for Devontae Adams. You probably shouldn't have signed Hassan Reddick at the point that you did if you weren't going to do it in training camp. Like, you need to flip Devontae Adams, trade Rodgers if anybody will take him, trade Reddick, trade Tyron Smith. It's over. Tear it down to the studs. You're starting over. Congratulations, you wasted this window.
Dan Orlovsky put out a stat about the Jets. They scored 20-plus points. They didn't turn it over. They allowed fewer than 250 yards. In NFL history, teams are 750-1, including the playoffs, when generating those 3 points on a box score. The only loss is the Jets yesterday.
That was my stat. It must have cut out again.
Oh man.
I didn't actually see that one from Orlovsky. I saw it somewhere else on Twitter. I can't remember where now, but yeah, it's just insane.
The Jets are a dumpster fire. It's so funny. They traded for Devontae. They should absolutely flip him, but yeah, they're not going to.
Got a comment coming in from Joe Ciccoletti. Glad to see Mark Henry back this week. Man, I'm glad to see him back on this podcast. We've been real hit or miss so far, but hopefully he's here to stay. Another comment. I thought the Jets were overrated going into the season, but that bad? Wow. Yeah, it turns out when you let Aaron Rodgers run your offensive coaching staff and personnel, it just doesn't work out. But I think they should sell everybody. I don't know who's trading for Rodgers at this point, but I'd take anything I could get because you're done. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke. What an absolute joke. The Patriots just traded Josh Uche to the Chiefs, by the way.
Oh, why? Stop trading good players to the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Stop it. It's annoying.
I heard after they traded for Hopkins that they didn't have any money left and they weren't going to be able to make any more trades. And then here we are.
What did they get for Uche?
Nothing yet.
Doesn't say yet.
No info yet. Yeah, this just happened a minute ago.
It better have been at least like a 3rd round pick.
Yeah, that's insane. They just gave up a 3rd, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep rolling. Let's go to Jacksonville, where the Packers win 30-27. And Josh Jacobs only had one 100-yard rushing game in the first 7 games of the year, but with Jordan Love exiting the game with the groin injury, which he was hobbled before he left, but he continued to play for a while. Josh Jacobs was leaned on heavily, and he had 127 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence turned the ball over twice in this game. He threw a pick. He lost a fumble, and the Jags were down 27-17 with under 10 minutes left to play. And they kick a field goal. They got a 3-and-out. They score a touchdown to tie it up. And then in typical Jags fashion, they promptly gave up a 51-yard pass to a backup quarterback to let the Packers get into game-winning field goal range. So Jags doing Jags things. Xavier McKinney doing Xavier McKinney things. He got another interception. It's his 6th pick of the year. Thoughts on this game?
The Jaguars are, it's just Jag's going to jag. But the takeaway is on the other side of the ball with Jordan Love. I don't know what the update is on that injury and kind of like how long that's going to take. They have the Lions coming up at home. They opened as a 1-point favorite. Now the line's up to 4.5. So I guess he's probably missing that game. But I don't know what the injury looks like at this point. But it's crazy. Every time Jordan Love goes out, they find a way to win, whether it's with the running game, whether it's with Malik Willis stepping up in a couple, big plays, 4 for 5, 56 yards and a touchdown, or the defense stepping up, maybe not necessarily in this game, but in the other games that Malik Willis played in. I think the sign of a great team is finding ways to win. And I don't know if Green Bay will be able to do that against Detroit next week if Love doesn't play. But when Love is out there, it's weirdly the games without Love that are making me more confident in what this team will be when they have a fully healthy Jordan Love, in big games in the playoffs. Like, I truly think this team is the best team in the NFC if Love's fully healthy.
Yeah, it said that he's going to have an MRI today, so I'm sure that has probably happened and results have not been leaked out to the public yet, but we'll definitely wait and see that. What was it? What was his injury earlier this year? It was the knee, right? Wasn't it? It was MCL sprain.
Yeah.
From week one.
From the turf. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's the groin. So at least it's not at least it's not a repeat groin injury, but we'll see. So let's keep going here. We'll go to Houston, where the Texans beat the Colts 23-10. And Houston was up 10 before they gave up an 11-play, 70-yard touchdown drive to the Colts. They got the ball back up 3 with 8 minutes left, and they went on a drive but fumbled in the red zone. But then the Colts went 3 and out, and then the Texans went 3 and out, but they burned up the Colts timeouts and pinned them inside the 10 with 1 minute, no timeouts, and they got the win. CJ Stroud was pressured on 58% of his dropbacks, but he only took 2 sacks. Both Joe Mixon and Jonathan Taylor topped 100 yards in their respective running games. But the big takeaway from this game is that Anthony Richardson stinks. He's awful. 10 of 32 for 175 yards and a touchdown with an interception. He took 5 sacks. One of his completions was a 69-yard pass to Josh Downs with nobody else even on the screen. And so if you wipe that one out, just an easy throw. 9 of 31 for 6 yards. He had a negative 16% completion percentage over expectation. Now, it is worth noting that the Texans also held Josh Allen to a 30% completion percentage early this year, so they can do that. But Anthony Richardson has a completion percentage of 44.4% this season, which is the lowest among qualifying quarterbacks in NFL history. Lower than Tim Tebow, than Jamarcus Russell. Insert disaster quarterback here, he's worse. He also took himself out of the game for a play in the third quarter, and he told reporters after the game it was because he was tired and needed a break. Like, if that's true, that cannot be your answer. You have to have it. You cannot say I was tired and needed a break as the quarterback of a football team. And that's why I took myself out of the game. So I am 1,000% out on Anthony Richardson. The Colts should be looking to draft a quarterback this year.
By the way, Josh Uche was traded for a 2026 6th-round pick to Kansas City.
That's a joke. Why do teams just keep giving? Why is nobody offering? And I don't understand that. Like, I get it with DeAndre Hopkins a little bit. I don't understand why nobody's offering more than that for Josh Uche. That seems insane.
I wish the Eagles would have offered more than a 2026 6th for Josh Uche. But my takeaway, and yeah, Anthony Richardson, I concur with everything you said. He shouldn't play another snap, especially after that comment. Quarterbacks don't come out of the game for being tired. It's an absolute joke. I've never heard anything like that in my life. But the takeaway for me is, like, Anthony Richardson played one of the worst games I've ever seen a quarterback play, and the Texans, like, had multiple chances to lose this game to them. And I get that they're 6-2. Vegas agrees with me because a little guess the line here. They play at the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Shane, what do you think the spread is?
Jets plus 3.5.
Jets -1.
Wow.
The Jets are favored. The 2-6 Jets are favored against 6-2 Texans. I think that tells you everything you need to know about what Vegas thinks of Houston and them escaping this game. I bet Houston stupidly in this game -4.5, and they don't win. They don't cover for me, obviously. But and now Stephon Diggs looks like he probably had a serious injury. I would say the Texans don't need to look for a wideout to replace him. I think once Nico's back, you have Nico and Tank Dell, which was perfectly fine last year. Even when they lost Dell, they were pretty good down the stretch. I thought when they traded for Diggs in the offseason that I would probably rather have them trade for another position, since I thought they were so strong at that position already. And you have Schultz and Mixon. I think that's still a pretty good group of weapons for Stroud there. So I wouldn't think so. But Houston, I'm shocked that they didn't take care of business here more. Richardson started this game 2 for 15, and they didn't pull away. So I have serious concerns about the Texans.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they're playing at the same level they were last year, but still plenty of time to get it together. They're going to cakewalk to that division, so they'll be there. It's kind of all about getting tuned up between now and then. So they
get thrown into those like Ravens Bills conversation as like the contenders of the AFC. Yeah. I don't think so.
No, I agree. I don't see them that way at all right now. Let's get into the Sunday afternoon slate. We've got 4 games left here to talk about. We'll start off with New Orleans at Los Angeles. The Chargers win 26-8. Justin Herbert goes 20 of 32 for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 49 yards. Spencer Rattler got benched for Jake Haener. The Saints were 2 of 16 on third downs. They punted 9 times. Mark, the Eagles only had 8 possessions in their game. So punting the ball, I think for the Chargers, Lad McConkey had a good game. First 100-yard game, first multi-touchdown game, 6 receptions for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. Life comes at you fast for the Saints, who thought they were contenders yet again, started the year fine yet again, and the wheels have totally come off with the Derek Carr injury. They're done. They should also be settlers, but I don't even think there's anybody they can sell at the deadline.
Because everyone's hurt. Their whole team got hurt. I feel bad for them, honestly. I think they would have probably been an average team, but you lose like 3 linemen, Chris Olave, a bunch of defensive players, Derek Carr. Like, what an insane injury report they've got there. But
they are trying to level the playing field, though, trying to take off quarterbacks' legs and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I didn't see this, so I was not. I was super locked in on Bill Seahawks and Commanders Bears. I did not pay attention to a snap of Saints Chargers. What's this about?
Oh my gosh. You talk about this game for a minute and I'll find the clip. It's one of the worst. It's one of the most egregious ones I've seen in a long time. So give me just a minute and I'll find it.
I mean, the Saints, Dennis Allen, what a joke. How does he still have a job? I guess you don't want to fire him when he's been dealing with Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, but yeah, I mean, he's an absolute moron. He's got one of the worst head coach records of all time. They shouldn't have never let him come into the year. Yeah, that seems ridiculous. Yeah, good on the O lineman for doing that.
Yeah, and then Justin Herbert's like pulling the offensive lineman away. I feel like he was like legitimately concerned about what that offensive lineman was about to do. That's just ridiculous. That guy should be suspended for multiple games. That shouldn't be a $20,000 fine. That should be a multi-game suspension.
I'm trying to figure out who number 75 on the Chargers is.
Bozeman. Bradley? Bozeman. Yeah.
He's our teammate of the week, Bradley Bozeman. That was a good job by him.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's keep rolling. I feel like you're usually telling me stuff I haven't seen, and I finally got to pull one off that you didn't see there. That's nice.
I was super unplugged on that game for sure.
Yeah, I get the stats that you don't know sometimes, but I'm never like, did you see this clip? And you're like, no. So that makes the week here. So let's go to Seattle. Buffalo demolishes Seattle 31-10. The Bills forced a 3-and-out. And then they went on a 110-yard touchdown drive. If you count the penalty yardage against them, their opening touchdown drive went 110 yards. It was actually 90 yards in real game yardage, but I thought that was funny. Josh Allen's consecutive passes without an interception streak was broken in this game. I think I read it was at 300, so he threw 300 straight passes without an interception, and then he threw a pick in this game. He was intercepted by Josh Jobe, Eagles legend, and it was run back to the 7-yard line. But then the Bills had a goal line stand. They forced a turnover on down starting at the 7. And then Josh Allen was strip sacked at the 12-yard line on third down, but it was recovered by the Bills. And it wasn't just recovered, it was recovered for a first down. So that was a wild sequence. The Seahawks moved the ball in this game, but they were only 1 of 3 in the red zone. It wasn't a good performance for the Seahawks. It was a good performance for Keon Coleman and James Cook, though. Keon Coleman had 125 yards last week. This week, he has 5 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. James Cook rushed for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also caught 3 passes for 22 yards. And the Bills have won 4 games this season now by 21 or more points. And they are plus 84 in point differential, trailing only the Lions at plus 100.
If you look at Josh Allen's, I think it's a crazy stat. It's like 85% of his wins have been by 7+ in his career. When Buffalo wins, they usually put it on you. It's kind of just how they are. And it's what I expected in this game. I loved Buffalo coming in. And it's nice. Seattle's one of those teams. I thought I had Seattle perfectly figured out at 3-3, and even at 3-0. I came on here and I'm like, they beat the Patriots, they beat Tim Boyle Dolphins, they beat the Broncos, who we thought stunk at the time, and then they lose 3 straight, and they lose at home to the Giants. Like I thought Seattle was very rightfully a fraud and a 7-8 win team, and then they go out and they smack Atlanta last week, and I had to sit. I was like, am I just totally underrating Seattle? And I'm happy to say that I was not. Like, I think this was more of who Seattle is than that game against Atlanta. And I think Buffalo, if I'm doing NFL power rankings, which I actually toying around with the idea of maybe putting some out. I'm off this week, so I got some time. I think I'm going to put out some NFL power rankings this week. Right now, I think I have Buffalo third. And the funny thing about that is the other 2 teams ahead of them are in the AFC. So I have them third in the AFC, but I have them third overall. I think they're right there among the absolute, tippy top Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah. Yeah. They're the AFC. I mean, we thought the AFC was going to be really good, and some of the teams might not have been as good as we thought they were going to be, but the AFC is still loaded. And I think it's the top end talent in the league. Although Detroit is playing really well. The Eagles appear to be turning a corner. We'll see if they can, keep it up over the next several weeks, but we'll see as we go.
And I came into the year pretty low on both Buffalo and Cincy, who I think were both earmarked as everyone was kind of selling this year as, Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, all those guys in the AFC. Let's see what happens. And I think I was right on Cincy, and Buffalo, I was wrong. I mean, this team, you can't fade Josh Allen.
The QB out of those 4 teams that's playing the worst is the one that's undefeated.
You're right. But
I'm not saying Mahomes is bad.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I do think the Mahomes stuff is overstated. But yeah, I do think you're right. Obviously.
Yeah, I just think it's funny that Mahomes isn't playing that well right now, and they're undefeated. And Joe Burrow is playing incredible, and they're 3-5 now?
3-5.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, go look around the AFC. Tell me who's knocking them out of that wild card. I still think Burrow said we're going to have to win 7 of 9 to get to 10-7. I think 9-8 is probably going to get you into the AFC playoffs. Like it's the 4 division winners. Pittsburgh probably is going to make their way to the playoffs. And then you're talking about, the 4-4 Colts, the Broncos, 4-3. The 5-3 Broncos, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
The 4-3 Chargers, the 3-5 Bengals, the 2-5 Dolphins. Like it's here's what I'll tell you. One of the Dolphins, Bengals, Broncos, or Chargers are making the playoffs, and potentially 2 of them if you're knocking Indianapolis out. I think Indy probably figures out a way to get there off the strength of playing a terrible schedule. But
I'll tell you how Indy gets there. You send Trent Richardson to NFL Europe, or Anthony Richardson to NFL Europe.
Colts legend Trent Richardson.
Yeah, send him to NFL Europe, and you've got a shot. But for Cleveland, I mean, they're gonna figure it out because 2 of their next 4 games are at Baltimore on a Thursday night, and then at home against Pittsburgh. So, and they've got another game against Pittsburgh, and they've got another game against Denver and Cleveland, who going to win some games now that they got rid of Deshaun Watson. So,
I'm going to do the stupidest segment of all time here. Just Bengals win-loss here. I'll give it to you right now because I was doing it earlier today. They're going to beat the Raiders 4-5. They'll lose at Baltimore 4-6. They'll beat the Chargers 5-6. They'll beat Pittsburgh at home 6-6. They'll beat Dallas on the road 7-6. They'll lose to Tennessee, or they'll beat Tennessee 8-6. They'll split Cleveland and Denver 9-7, and then they'll lose Pittsburgh in the last week. They'll be 9-8 playoffs.
And will Pittsburgh need that win to get to 9-8 themselves? Because that would be the most Pittsburgh thing ever.
I nerdily picked out the rest of the NFL season this morning, playoff predictors, that website. You can go in and reset it to what's happened so far and then pick the rest of the year. I ended up with the Colts, Bengals, and Steelers all at 9-8. So they all got in at 5, 6, and 7 seeds at 9-8.
Mediocrity. And we had a comment from YouTube. You'd have an 80% chance of figuring out most NFL teams by saying they're mediocre. So
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's go to Denver. We've been talking about the Broncos. We've been kind of talking around it. Denver beats Carolina, and I don't have a lot to say about. I mean, Bo Nix played a really good game. He's 28 of 37 for 284 and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed for a touchdown. Ultimately, it was against the Panthers, so I don't really care. The Panthers are atrocious. However, he did become the only quarterback in Denver history with 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and no interceptions in a game. So making history there. Bryce Young was 24 of 37 for 224 and 2 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 picks. Denver's defense is good. I'm not sold on Bo Nix at all, but he looked fine against a bad Carolina defense. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, not much, but we're playing the schedule game. Denver, in the next 3 weeks, I don't see them getting a win. You go at Baltimore, at Kansas City, Atlanta at home. Maybe you beat Atlanta at home, but I'm obviously higher on Atlanta than most. Atlanta will be favored in that game for sure, as long as they're healthy. So I think they're 5-6 after those games. You get 4 games that are winnable, but also losable because you're the Broncos, Raiders, Browns, Colts, Chargers. But then you close the year at Bengals and then Chiefs again in week 17 and 18. Maybe the Chiefs don't need week 18 potentially, but it's you have 5 brutal games out of, 10 year remaining. So, and you're the Broncos. So the other games are not like easy, definite wins anyway. So I'm still pretty skeptical on the 5-3 Broncos, but I mean, I took their over before the year. I have their over at 6.5. So I was higher on them than consensus coming into the season. That's because Sean Payton's he's too good of a coach to be a bad team, kind of.
Yeah. Comment from Joe coming in that says that Atlanta's going streaking. We're looking at a Super Bowl run if we can get a pass rusher.
Why
Mark's
didn't
there
you get
with
on
you.
the phone and call Josh Uche, Joe? You
No
could have made the deal. Get on the phone. Work the phone lines.
No kidding. I feel like, doesn't Reed have a history of playing guys in meaningless Week 18 games? At least some.
Yeah, I think he's chilled out on it recently. I think he has, or maybe even like he's played him a possession or two, maybe. Yeah. I think he's chilled on it a bit recently.
Yeah. Maybe if that becomes relevant near the end of the year, I'll look that up, but I don't feel like it today. So
no, definitely not.
All right, let's get into the last game. Kansas City, speaking of the Chiefs, at the Raiders. The Raiders played the Chiefs tough. They lose 27-20. Mahomes threw a pick in the third quarter, and the Raiders ended up with 1st and goal at the 3, down 4, but the defense forced a turnover on downs. And so, the defense stands strong. Steve Spagnuolo is fantastic. The Raiders' rushing attack was atrocious in this game, 21 carries for 33 yards. The Chiefs' rushing attack was awful, 29 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. This was a good Gardner Minshew game, 24-30 for 209 and 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough. Travis Kelce had a season high in receptions with 10, yards with 90, and he had a touchdown. And DeAndre Hopkins only had 2 catches for 29 yards on 3 targets. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm sure they will get him more integrated into the offense with time because there's just nothing else there. But it might take a little bit for him to get accustomed to Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs remain the only undefeated. They continue to not look impressive while doing it. They're the only undefeated team, and I think they're only ranked like 9th in point differential.
That's insane, actually. I didn't know that. But the Raiders, when you look at Minshew, and I watched a good bit of this game. Minshew played great in this game, especially when you consider the fact that they traded their top receiver and got absolutely nothing from the run game with 1.5 yards a carry there. When I bought in on the Raiders in the offseason, this was kind of the Minshew that I was envisioning. But what else I was envisioning was a team that could maybe run the ball a little bit, and a team that had Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. Christian Wilkins gone for the year. Max Crosby's been banged up, hasn't been the same guy all year. They lost guys in the back end in the secondary. So obviously now it's an absolute terrible situation for Gardner Minshew. So I'm begging, free the big shoe, free Gardner Minshew, get him to a team with I hope someone gets hurt in the next couple of weeks. Well, that sounds terrible. And then
I'm going to clip that.
And then they could trade Gardner Minshew to save the day. Nothing more would make me happier than Gardner Minshew being like a trade deadline guy to go save someone's season, because I really do think in the right situation he could step in and right the ship somewhere, like Indy. And I know, like,
I was
oh my
about to
God,
say that.
how did I not connect?
I
those
was
dots
about to say,
earlier?
imagine he gets traded to the Colts.
I just said when I was suggesting Indy, when it first just popped in my head, I was not thinking like where was he last year. I was thinking about us talking about benching Richardson. Obviously Flacco I think would be just fine there, but Minshew, trade him to Indy. That'd be incredible.
That would be so great. What the trade deadline is? What, 2 weeks out?
I think, yeah, it's something like that. Either in the middle of not next week, but the week after. So I guess one more game. I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, it is. No, okay, it's November 5th.
Yeah, so it's in the middle of next week actually.
So
So this game will be the
Tuesday.
last. This game this week, the games will be the last one.
All right, next Monday, I'm bringing for my final thoughts some trades that should definitely happen, but won't because there's not enough time left.
Yeah, it seems like all the trades are getting done early this year. Usually the deadline's kind of like the onus to get those done, but they've been happening all over the place this year.
Yeah, Jets, trade everybody.
What a joke.
All right, that is going to do it for this episode. Mark, before we get out of here, do you have any final thoughts for the people?
Final thoughts for the people. I'll say this. Commanders open up as a 3-point favorite next week at the New York Giants. I don't care what happens tonight. I'm locking the bet in now at -3 for Washington. I think in likelihood, the Giants probably show up and stink against the Steelers. And then the line goes up and your Commanders are probably going to be -5, -5.5. I think there's no scenario where I'm not betting the Commanders in this game. I love betting teams off a short week. Giants playing on Monday Night Football here, coming back to play Washington. I know they played Washington tough earlier in the year. I think this is a different Jayden Daniels than you saw in around like week 1 and 2. So, not great as an Eagles fan here to be suggesting betting on Washington, but I think Washington keeps it rolling at least till next week.
All right. With a big matchup with the Eagles looming in the near future. So,
which I'll be on a plane for, by the way. I will.
Terrible.
I land at 9:00 on that Thursday. The airlines have been they kind of lie to you about when you're going to land. You land about a half hour earlier, usually, as long as your plane takes off, and then you're like, "Oh, they got me there earlier." I think it's a mental thing that airlines try to do to you for sure. So I'm hoping that that's the case. I landed 8:30 at an airport bar or something. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yesterday was the first Eagles game I haven't watched live, and it's probably been at least 2 years because it got flexed up and like I had something going on and I couldn't get it changed. I ended up I finished the game about 30 minutes after it actually ended. So I didn't end up that far off, but it felt really weird not to watch the game live. I didn't like that experience at all. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
I think the last time I didn't watch an Eagles game live, I'm trying to get the right year here. This is not great content at the end of the pod. I think it was Andy's last season. So that would be 2012 when they went 4-12 to close the year. I think the last game or two of that season, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I've had enough. This is, uncle. I've had enough. So I think that was where I was.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Chalk Talk, episode number 176. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, smash that subscribe button. The Eagles Pinpool Network, wherever you stream podcasts, at Eagles Pinpool Network or at Eagles Pinpool on Twitter and YouTube. Lots of great content coming your way. We had a lot of Eagles questions today, and those are going to be answered in a lot of shows throughout the rest of this week. So hit that subscribe button. Drop us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're at. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr., and we will catch you guys next time.